And we're interviewing for this segment Harry Adamian, who was a veteran of the Korean War. And we're going to ask him about some of his experiences, his feelings about the war, how his family felt, and in general, an interview which we hope will inspire future generations. Harry, just give us your full name and tell us where you're born and raised.
Harry Adamian, born in Arlington, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm. And is that where you live now?
As a matter of fact, yes.
When you entered the Korean War, was it from?
It was from Arlington.
It was from Arlington? Okay. And what was your educational background before you went into the war?
High school graduate. I graduated in June of '52 and volunteered for the draft in March 3rd of '53.
Did you sign up or were you drafted?
No, I volunteered for the draft. At that time, there was volunteering for the draft in order to get the 2 years in rather than the 3.
Okay. And what is your current occupation now, Harry?
Retired.
You're retired from?
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Treasurer's Office.
Okay. And were you married when you went into the, service?
17 years of age.
You're 17. And what did you do in your service? What was your specialty?
Well, when I went in, they asked me what I did, and I told them I was a cook, because my dad had a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And when I got out of high school, he had decided I was going to work for him.
Uh-huh.
So we worked for a while. So when we went into the Army, they said, what can you do? I said, well, I'm a cook. And in Fort Devens, I stayed in Fort Devens upon induction for 6 months before I went to basic training, cooking in the kitchen.
So you were with the KPs? Kitchen. Is that what they call you?
No, I was a cook.
You were a cook. Okay. Now, were you a cook throughout your service?
Throughout the entire service, right. From there, we went to Devens for basic, and then to cook school after I was a cook, and after that to Alaska.
What did your basic training consist of?
It was 8 weeks of normal basic training and 8 weeks of cook school.
How'd you feel about your? Was the cook school anything like you've been cooking at home?
Cook school was great. Taught me an awful lot.
You did.
I thought I was a cook before I went in, and I found out I really wasn't. Was able to handle any situation from a bivouac kitchen to a normal kitchen.
So, where did you serve?
Outside of Anchorage, Alaska. I served at a headquarters company, 867 AAA, in Anchorage for about 6 months. Then was transferred to its unit at an outpost about 60 miles southwest of Anchorage at an outpost called Squintner, where we had about 16 Army guys and the Civil Aeronautics Administration, and maintained a 3,000-foot emergency runway for Anchorage and a radar station.
Okay. And so you were a cook throughout your service?
Throughout the entire time.
And you were single?
I was single and young.
And how did your parents feel about you going into the service?
They were pleased that I was going in the service. They thought it was something that would cause me to grow and mature, and I certainly did both.
And was this during the actual
yeah, the Korean War was on at the time. Mm-hmm. When I finally shipped out to Alaska, and I can't remember the date, the Korean War was still going on. And you want any anecdotes?
Sure. Any anecdotal information is helpful.
I got my orders to go to Alaska, and I was very, very despondent because I wanted to go to Korea. And I went to see the commanding officer. Mind you, I was 17 years old, full of vinegar and the other ingredient. And I went to the commanding officer and said, look, I want my orders changed. I want to go to Korea. He said, why do you want to go to Korea? I said, because I want R&R in Japan. I heard all about those wonderful things, and it was worth taking the risk. Of course, at 17, there are a lot of risks you take. The commanding officer almost threw me out of his office and told me I wasn't going to Korea. I was going to Alaska, and we shipped out by train and then by boat from Seattle to Stewart. And from there to, as I said, to 867th Headquarters Company, and then from there to the outpost, which reduced my time in service, by the way, because at an outpost you had 2 for 1 time, so I was released from the service before the 24 months was achieved.
Did your parents come from overseas?
My father was an immigrant. My mother was born from was born in Worcester. My father was from what is now Turkey, and at that time Armenia, in a town called Antib, Aintab.
Enteb. He came from Enteb, Armenia.
That's right.
Okay. And did he meet your mother here?
Yes.
And did you feel that when you went into the service, you were doing your duty? Was it a duty that you were doing, or did you feel as if you were going to get drafted anyway?
I think it was a combination of things. My brother had been was in the V5 program, which was training Army pilots, Navy pilots rather, and had completed his training and ended up in the Navy as an ensign on some tanker or something, and so we had a history of a brother serving.
Right.
And I thought perhaps that I would do the same thing. It was an honor, I would say.
But did you feel as if you were doing a duty?
I thought it was a requirement. I think it's something that young men should do even today. I wish it was mandatory.
How did you feel about the Korean War? Because that was a police action, wasn't it?
Well, as I read the newspapers and as I got a little bit older, I resented what was happening. Again, I was still a young man. I hadn't gone to college. My horizons weren't very broad, but I just didn't like the idea of not fighting to win a war, which is the same feeling I had in Vietnam.
How did you feel about the Truman's policy?
I don't think I don't think I really gave any thought. At 17, 18 years old, I don't think I had any real defined feeling politically. I just knew that we were supposed to win and we should have won, and I felt as if we weren't fighting to win. And
were you actually in Korea?
No, I spent.
But you did most of your service in.
All my time was in Alaska. At that time, of course, it wasn't a state. It was still the Wild Wild West.
And how did you feel? Did you develop friendships while you were in the service?
During that period of time, there were some great friendships. After the service, none remained.
Did you didn't have any reunions afterwards?
Never had a reunion. Just last year, someone called on the telephone, said he found my name and he remembered the name. So he picked up the phone, he found it on the internet and the telephone book, and asked me if I was Harry Adamian. That was in the 867th, and we served together. It was it was a nice thing to happen. And I don't know if he's doing anything or not, but we traded telephone numbers and email numbers, and it was kind of good. The past just came back so fast after so many years.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any other responsibilities outside your duty as a cook?
My job was to keep both the offices, because we were a headquarters company, and the enlisted men as happy as I possibly could. We had some great facilities. We weren't roughing into the headquarters company.
And was Anchorage a cold place?
Actually, we had colder weather in Butte, Montana than we did in Anchorage.
Really?
Because we're right off the Cook Inlet, and the Pacific Ocean would come up that way. We had plenty of snow, but driving on the snow was no big deal. We had beautiful summers. They talk about the mosquitoes in Alaska and the Anchorage area being as wide as a span of your hand or even wider, and they were that. We did go swimming in a lake in August.
So they do have very warm.
Beautiful.
summers.
Yeah. Now you take a cruise, for $3,500. I had an excellent cruise for nothing. Of course, the cruise ship where I went on wasn't very good.
So you think that it was a good idea that we added Alaska to the Union as a state?
Well, it was a darn good thing, because the Aleutian Islands were 2.5 miles away from the closest U.S. point, and at that time we were defending the Elmendorf Air Force Base, which was defending the west coast of the United States through Elmendorf. Oh, by the way, the thing that's kind of interesting is here we are, the headquarters company was a AAA outfit, and the guns we used were made here at the Watertown Arsenal.
Oh, really?
They had the guns that were ones that were at that time designed to follow the plane and to shoot at it without missing it, and it was all made at the Watertown Arsenal right up the street, about an eighth of a mile from here.
Very good. How did you feel the medical service was there?
Really didn't have any occasion to use it.
Did they have a hospital?
Oh, they had hospitals. They had all the facilities, but I never had occasion to use it, not being in a combat situation.
Do you feel that there were any reason to have an anti-war protest during the Korean conflict? How do you feel? Did you have any feeling towards anti-war protests? Did it reach?
Again, you know, I think that by virtue of being so darn young, I really didn't form any kind of an opinion on that. If you were to ask me how I feel now, it'd be a different story. But I was really...
You just did your job?
Just did my job, did the best I could, kept trying to get promoted, worked very hard at it.
What was the highest rank that you...
I only made corporal.
Corporal.
At E4, I guess they call it.
When you returned from Korea, how were you treated, or did you care?
The only thing that I found disconcerting was the fact that during basic training I had some injuries, and I had an injury, not severe, and when I was at the base, they let us out from it. I think it was Camp Kilmer in New Jersey. If you wanted to make sure your records were right and you wanted to get a disability or apply for disability, assuming that you were qualified for one, they said the only way you could do it is by staying there for another month or two. And of course, after not being home for 18 to 23 months, and again being that age, he said, look, I don't want to stay anymore, I want to go home. So I felt that they didn't have the opportunity to pursue any of those kinds of rights that you had, whether they came out to fruition or not, you know, whether or not you had that disability, whether you were entitled. So I just felt that was not right.
Did you have occasion to use the GI Bill?
Oh, greatest thing that man ever invented.
Where did you go?
I went to Boston University for a year, 3 years at State College of Lowell, now called University of Mass Lowell, and then my master's degree, which was also free as a veteran, Salem State College, going part-time evenings as I taught as a teacher back in those days in 1958 and 59 and 60. The GI Bill was the greatest thing that ever happened. Every time I think of paying taxes, I keep thinking back to all the benefits I have, and I keep my mouth shut.
So you have a you were in the teaching field.
I trained as a teacher. I became a teacher for 12 years. Then I went into higher education, became a dean at 3 or 4 colleges in the area.
What college?
Bentley College in Waltham, Dean Junior College in Franklin, which was a co-ed 2-year college. LaSalle College for Women, which was the oldest women's college in the United States. And then...
So you were appreciative of the GI Bill?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And so you're probably more appreciative of the GI Bill than you were of the experiences that carried you through to your present...
I would say if it wasn't for the GI Bill...
You'd end up being a cook.
Yeah, which, by the way, is not a bad avocation.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination, and I still do cook on a volunteer basis for a couple of thousand people every year, but that's neither here nor there. That's because it's a joy rather than a job.
And Did you join any veterans organizations prior to joining Post 41 AmVets?
I belonged to, I attempted, no, I went to a couple of meetings of Post 41 back in 1955, 1956, January and February. Again, I was out of the service at 19. The guys were a bit older. I didn't feel.
You didn't feel you wanted to join a veterans organization
didn't feel a fit.
Yeah.
But did join that year, and then left the subsequent year.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this interview, Harry?
No, being here at Post 41 now just brings back a whole bunch of memories with a great group of guys. Some of them I've known for the past 50 years. Introduced me to a few other people I didn't know, and it's just been one great experience. And it's good to be a member of a post, and brings back the kinds of things that are important. And a veterans organization, absolutely.
All right, we'll conclude this interview with Harry Adamian, who is a member of Post 41 AmVets, Corporal Paul Masubian Post in Watertown, Massachusetts. Thank you very much, Harry.
Good. Take care.
All right.